नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। ब्रज भूमि श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा महारानी की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। तुलसी महारानी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की जय। सामवेद गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। All glories to assembled devotees.
Hare
All
Krishna.
glories to assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to assembled devotees.
Hare
All
Krishna.
glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, Dhritarashtra quits home. Text 35 and 36. Text 35. Suta uvacha kripaya sneha vaiklavyat suto viraha karshitaha atmeshwaram achakshano na pratyahati piditaha. Suta uvacha कृपया स्नेह वैक्लव्यात् सूतो विरह कर्षितः आत्मेश्वरम् अचक्षाणो न प्रत्याहाति पीडितः. सूत उवाच कृपया स्नेह वैक्लव्यात् सूतो विरह कर्षितः आत्मेश्वरम् अचक्षाणो न प्रत्याहाति पीडितः. Please chant.
Suta uvacha kripaya sneha vaiklavyat suta viraha karishta atmeswaram achakshano na pratyahati pidita. Hare Krishna.
Sutta uvacha kripaya sneha vaiklavyat suto viraha karishitaha atmeshwaram chakshano na pratyahati paditaha. Haribo.
Hare Krishna. Sutta uvacha kripaya sneha vaiklavyat suto viraha karshitaha atmeshwaramachakshano na pratyahati piditaha. Hare Krishna.
Sutta uvacha kripaya sneha vaiklavyat suto viraha karshitaha atmeshwaram ajaksano na pratyahati piditaha.
Hare Krishna. Sutta uvacha kripya sneha vaiklavyat suto viraha karshitaha atmeshwaram achyano na pratyahati piditaha.
Sutta uvacha
कृपया स्नेह वैक्लव्यात् सूतो विरह कर्षिता आत्मेश्वरमचक्षाणो न प्रत्याहाति पीडिता.
Okay. Word to word translation. Suta Uvacha. Suta Goswami said, Kripaya, out of full compassion. Sneha Vaiklavyat, mental derangement due to profound affection. Sutaha Sanjaya, Viraha Karshitaha, distressed by separation. Atma Ishwaram, his master. Achakshanaha, having not seen. Na, did not. Pratyaha, replied. Atipiditaha, being too aggrieved. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Suta Goswami said, because of compassion and mental agitation, Sanjaya, not having seen his own master Dhritarashtra, was aggrieved and could not properly reply to Maharaja Yudhishthir. Purport. Sanjaya was the personal assistant of Maharaj Dhritarashtra for a very long time, and thus he had the opportunity to study the life of Dhritarashtra. And when he saw at last that Dhritarashtra had left home without his knowledge, his sorrows had no bound. He was fully compassionate toward Dhritarashtra, because in the game of the battle of Kurukshetra, King Dhritarashtra had lost everything, men and money, and at last the king and the queen had to leave home in utter frustration. He studied the situation in his own way, because he did not know that the inner vision of Dhritarashtra has been awakened by Vidura, and that therefore he had left home in enthusiastic cheerfulness for a better life after departure from the dark well of home. Unless one is convinced of a better life after renunciation of the present life, one cannot stick to the renounced order of life simply by artificial dress or staying out of the home. Text 36. Vimrijyashruni panibhyam vishtabhyatmanam atmana ajata shatrum pratyuche prabho padavanusmaran. I'll do the word to word also. Vimrijya, smearing. Ashruni, tears of the eyes. Panibhyam, with his hands. Vishtabhya, situated. Atmanam, the mind. Atmana, by intelligence. Ajata Shatrum, unto Maharaj Yudhishthir. Pratyuche, began to reply. Prabhoho, of his master. Padav, feet. Anusmaran, thinking after. Translation. First, he slowly pacified his mind by intelligence, and wiping away his tears and thinking of the feet of his master, Dhritarashtra, he began to reply to Maharaj Yudhishthir. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Utapada Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagra Jatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamscha हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। सूत उवाच कृपया स्नेह वैक्लव्यात् सूतो विरह कर्षितः आत्मेश्वरम् अचक्षाणो न प्रत्याहाति पीडितः. So the translation, Suta Goswami said, because of compassion and mental agitation, Sanjaya, not having seen his own master Dhritarashtra, was aggrieved and could not properly reply to Maharaja Yudhishthira. And then first he slowly pacified his mind by intelligence and wiping away his tears and thinking of the feet of his master Dhritarashtra, he began to reply to Maharaja Yudhishthira. So we saw last week that after hearing the instructions of Vidura, Maharaj Dhritarashtra was firmly convinced. By introspective knowledge, he became firmly convinced of his position as a spirit soul, and therefore he was able to break his ties of family affection. So, and then he was determined, and immediately he left home to set out on the path of liberation as directed by his younger brother Vidura. So he left home. Dhritarashtra Maharaj, after listening to the instructions of Vidura, he became convinced of his position. What is that? Knowledge, isn't it? Jnana. What is that jnana? Jnana is to understand that I'm not this body, I'm a spirit soul. That is jnana. Right now, the situation, conditioned state, the situation is ajnana. We are unaware, we are in the bodily concept of life. We think I am this body, and then everything related to this body is mine. Whether it is people or wealth or land, community, I identify myself as belonging to a particular situation. That is bodily concept. Jnana means you understand I'm none of these. I'm a spirit soul. Spirit soul does not have all these designations. I'm not a man, I'm not a woman, I'm not an Indian, I'm not, American, I'm not beautiful or ugly, fat or thin, I'm not highly qualified or illiterate, I'm not from an aristocratic family, nothing like that. That is Brahma Bhuta platform. Brahma Bhuta means understanding, realize, this is self-realization. I'm not this body. This is jnana. So Maharaj Dhritarashtra, he became convinced of his position as a spirit soul. How did he become convinced, by the way? How did he get this determination? By the instruction of a sadhu. That's the only way we can awaken it. By the association of a sadhu, by hearing from a sadhu. Then this knowledge was awakened, and then he became determined, and he left home immediately. And then when he left home, his wife Gandhari, a chaste lady who had taken a vow of voluntarily becoming blind for the rest of her life. Why did she do that? So that she can remain subordinate to her husband, so that she may not become proud in front of her husband that she's better than him. So she blindfolded herself, And so she's a chaste lady. So when her husband left home to go to the forest, she also left. She also left. So Gandhari followed her husband. Of course, Vidura also left because Vidura was the one who was guiding Dhritarashtra. So all three of them left. It's not that, they went together, Dhritarashtra Maharaj and Gandhari. Dhritarashtra was completely renounced. He just left home. Gandhari followed behind him. Now, Yudhishthir Maharaj's daily morning ritual was he would come in front of his superiors, his elders. So the only elder person that was remaining in the family was Dhritarashtra and of course Gandhari. So he would come every morning and offer his obeisances to them. Dhritarashtra left without informing anyone. He just left. And that was the instruction of Vidura, by the way, because if you told them, they would try to stop you. So he just left. And the next morning when Yudhishthir Maharaj came, he couldn't find Dhritarashtra. He looked everywhere. He couldn't find Dhritarashtra. And he became concerned because, first of all, Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, he couldn't find, in fact, he couldn't find any of them, Vidura, Gandhari and Dhritarashtra. So, especially Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, they have faced such a loss recently. Their 100 sons and grandsons, they were all killed. Within 18 days, they were all killed. Such a shock, imagine. And they lost their kingdom. On top of that, he was invalid. He was so old. And he was blind also. So where did they go? What happened to them? And Yudhishthir Maharaj became, it is said, Yudhishthir Maharaj, whose enemy was never born, performed his daily morning duties by praying, offering fire sacrifice to the sun god, and offering obeisances, grains, cows, land, and gold to the Brahmanas. He then entered the palace to pay respects to the elderly. However, he could not find his uncles or aunt, the daughter of King Subala. What was Yudhishthir Maharaj's state of mind? He was full of anxiety. And who did he find there? He found Sanjaya sitting alone in Dhritarashtra Maharaj's room. And Yudhishthir Maharaj inquired, "Oh Sanjaya, where is our uncle who is old and blind? Where is my well-wisher, Uncle Vidura and Mother Gandhari, who is very afflicted due to all her sons' demise? My uncle Dhritarashtra was very mortified due to the death of all his sons and grandsons. All this is because of me. First of all, because of me, all their sons were killed. Yes? It was because of me. To make me the emperor, all these sons were killed. And now I even neglected them. I didn't take care of them properly. So they got offended, or, they were heartbroken that, and they left. I'm so ungrateful. So did they take my offenses seriously, and did they all go and commit suicide? Did they all drown themselves in the Ganga? And when we were small children, we didn't have our father, and Dhritarashtra and Vidura, these uncles, they raised us like our fathers. And in return, what did I do for them? I just neglected them. I didn't take care of them. And so they went and drowned themselves in the Ganga. Oh my God, where have they gone? Like this. So when Sanjaya heard all this, how did Sanjaya feel? Who is Sanjaya, first of all? Sanjaya is the personal attendant. He's the chariot driver. But you see, Dhritarashtra Maharaj is blind. So, he was Well, he's a Kshatriya. I don't know if he actually went in battles or not. I don't have that information. But Sanjaya was his chariot driver. He would take him wherever he wanted. And actually, when we read in Mahabharata, we will see Sanjaya was very intimate with Dhritarashtra. He could even, he could fearlessly tell him that he was not doing the right thing. Sanjaya was sent as a messenger by Dhritarashtra Maharaj to the Pandavas, to Yudhishthir Maharaj. After the 13 years of exile, wanting to know what is their, what are they thinking? What do they want? So after Sanjaya met them and came back, he told Dhritarashtra Maharaj that Yudhishthir Maharaj just wants whatever is rightfully theirs. That's all. And then he actually started instructing Dhritarashtra that your acts are very sinful. He said that, actually, I would like to read directly from Mahabharata, this episode. 1 second. Yeah. So I'll just read this section. After Sanjaya left, Dhritarashtra sat alone, his mind racked by painful thoughts. Then finally, although it was late, Dhritarashtra felt that he needed to hear what's going on. 1 second, I'll just go back.
Mataji, do you want to tell me the page? I will share it.
Okay, Mataji. I'll just tell you the chapter. This is chapter 43 in Mahabharata, Krishna Dharma Prabhu's Mahabharata. You'll find it in Veda base. It's called Anxiety for the Blind King. Okay, it's actually in the beginning itself. Did you share that? I'll just start. So Sanjaya entered the chamber with clasped hands and stood before Dhritarashtra. Oh, is my internet weak? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, we are able to hear.
Okay. Yeah. So this is Sanjaya entered the chamber. Yeah, go higher, Mataji. Yeah. Come down a little bit. A little bit more. A little bit more. Which one is this?
Continue.
Anxiety for the blind king, right? So yeah, third paragraph. Sanjaya entered the chamber with clasped hands and stood before Dhritarashtra. O Lord of the earth, I am Sanjaya, returned from seeing the Pandavas. Yudhishthir sends his greetings and asks after your health and that of your sons and grandsons. Blessings to you, Sanjaya. Welcome back. Tell me how Yudhishthir, who creates no enemies, is faring. Are he and his brothers well? All is well with the Pandavas. Yudhishthir desires to have what was formerly his. In his opinion, virtue is superior to acquiring wealth, and it is the essence of happiness and joy. That godly man, motivated only by virtue, wishes to again protect the people in accord with the eternal duties the Creator has assigned to him. Surely men are puppets led by God's will. So this is what Sanjaya is telling Dhritarashtra. Surely men are puppets led by God's will. Otherwise, how could the Pandavas have suffered so much? I think that as long as a powerful man does not have an opportunity to rectify things, his antagonists will prosper. Your acts have been indescribably sinful, O king, and you will soon receive their results. Yudhishthir, having cast away sin as a snake sloughs its skin, is now resplendent amid other heroes. So this is what I wanted to tell you about the relationship between Sanjaya and Dhritarashtra. Sanjaya's long and intimate relationship with Dhritarashtra allowed him to be frank. So he could tell him directly. The king winced as his secretary continued. Reflect carefully on your course, O king, because your motives are suicidal. You have acted dishonorably toward the Pandavas, and you have achieved neither virtue nor wealth. Vicious and cruel, your deeds have earned you only shame and censure among men. We can understand such actions from low-class men with poor education, but you are born in the line of Bharata and have been advised by many wise ministers. You too are wise and know the difference between right and wrong. Why then do you act to bring about the destruction of your race? And how was Dhritarashtra? He could have just cut off his head for speaking to him like this. Dhritarashtra pressed a forefinger and thumb into his eyes. He felt unbearably hot, although he was being fanned on both sides by young maidens with chamara whisks. He unbuttoned his tunic and called for a cup of cool water. Sanjaya did not relent. He could not bear to see his master bring about his own ruin. The time for diplomacy was past. Disaster was imminent. If there was any hope of averting it, the king needed to keep hearing the truth and do something soon. Sanjaya is further saying, surely the Pandavas are aided by divine forces. Otherwise, how could Arjun have gone to the heavens in his mortal body? God alone awards men the results of their deeds. Our exertions are useless if we fail to recognize this truth. Striving only for our own gratification, we will gain nothing but misery. O king, I blame you for the present situation. You have acted without regard for God's laws. If you do not reverse your decisions, you will be responsible for the annihilation of innumerable men. Arjun will destroy the Kurus as fire destroys a heap of dry grass. Influenced by your headstrong son, you think your success is sure. Thus, you did not prevent the dice game. Now look at the result of such madness. O king, because you are weak, you will not be able to retain sovereignty over this broad realm any more than a fool can retain wealth suddenly gained. So, this is the relationship of Sanjaya with Dhritarashtra Maharaj. Certainly, he had a lot of affection. Just like Vidura. Recently, we saw Vidura instructing Dhritarashtra Maharaj. Like Vidura and Bhishma Dev, Sanjay was also giving good advice to his master. And we read in this purport, the Prabhupada is saying, Sanjay was the personal assistant of Maharaj Dhritarashtra for a very long time. Before Sanjaya, Dhritarashtra Maharaj's chariot driver was Adhiratha, the father of Karna. So when he got Karna, then that responsibility was given to Sanjaya. So he's been there since the Kauravas and Pandavas were small children. He's been the chariot driver of Dhritarashtra Maharaj. So for a very long time, he had been the personal assistant of Maharaj Dhritarashtra. That's how he had it's something like a marriage, isn't it? The spouse can see, like you spend so much time together, the relationship between the master and the servant, and the chariot driver. And besides, Dhritarashtra is blind. So we can also imagine how much more he depended. And Sanjaya, even though he was a chariot driver, that means he belonged to the Suta caste, he was so qualified that he became the disciple of Vyasdev. Yeah. Vyasdev gave him Divya Drishti, that he could see everything that was happening on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So he is a very qualified person. So on one hand, he had this affection for his master, with whom he had been for so many decades. He was the servant, so intimately related. And he could see, what are the events that led to this battle of Kurukshetra. So it is, you see, you love someone a lot, but you see that person going towards destruction, and there's nothing you're able to do to help that person. How would you feel? Sometimes we have that experience as parents. As a mother, as a father, we love our children very much. But sometimes children go astray. And then we love them so much, we want to help them, but helplessly we just watch them going towards destruction. What is the pain that is experienced by such a parent? Similarly here, Sanjaya, he loved his master because he served him. When you serve someone, there will be love. Certainly, there will be affection. When you serve, when you render service, you experience affection and joy. And he's been serving Dhritarashtra for so many years, so many decades. So he had that affection, but he was also watching how his life was, because of Dhritarashtra's attachment to his wicked son Duryodhan, and also because of his own desire for power. All the things that had happened ultimately leading to the battle of Kurukshetra. And finally, he lost everything in this battle. He lost everything. So basically, he's just standing there and seeing him fall apart, his life fall apart. And now the final thing is, he just disappeared. He disappeared. Not even that he died, and he had some final rites performed and, all the brahmanas chanting mantras. Sanjaya is not aware that Dhritarashtra left home for spiritual emancipation. That's not, he didn't know that. He is thinking, Dhritarashtra is so frustrated, and he became so sad, so depressed that he could not keep his life anymore. He went and committed suicide. He left home. That is what is making Sanjaya so sad. And Srila Prabhupada makes that point here. That what is Sanjaya thinking? That he left home. He saw that after this battle of Kurukshetra, Dhritarashtra had lost everything, men and money. And at last, the king and the queen had to leave home in utter frustration. They didn't know where to go. They are depending on someone else. And we also saw how Bhimsen would kind of, throw food and things like that. So they became so helpless, so frustrated that they had to just leave home in that old age and just, they just left. So Prabhupada is saying he studied the situation in his own way because he did not know that the inner vision of Dhritarashtra had been awakened by Vidura. This is what Sanjaya saw all his life. He never saw that Dhritarashtra actually got that knowledge, right? Transcendental knowledge. He didn't see that. He could only see all this while he saw he was very much attached to his son, to his kingdom, to his throne. And this is the result of all this attachment. Ultimately, he's just now leaving home out of frustration. And therefore, seeing this type of end to his dear master, he's feeling so sad. And when he heard the questions asked by Yudhishthir Maharaj, he was not able to answer. Because of it, that sadness, he was not able to answer. And then Srila Prabhupada is saying one more thing here, that Sanjay was not aware that Dhritarashtra left home in enthusiastic cheerfulness. Actually, when Dhritarashtra left home, he was cheerful that finally he was able to overcome that attachment to the family. He's leaving everything behind and he's able to go. At least towards the end of his life, he's able to just give up all this and now walk on the right path. So he left home in enthusiastic cheerfulness for a better life after departure. So it is not that out of frustration, out of depression, he left home to commit suicide. Rather, he's going for a higher cause, right? Param drishtva nivartate, vishayavani vartante niraharasya dehinaha rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Yeah. So when one gets something higher, he's able to give up the lower attachments. And that type of giving up of attachments is not so difficult. It's not difficult at all. It's not difficult at all. With small children, you will see, they want something then you give them something better, then they don't mind giving that up. They'll go for that. So similarly, Dhritarashtra left home in cheerfulness because he's going to get something superior to what he had already. And another significant point is, unless one is convinced of a better life after renunciation of the present life, one cannot stick to the renounced order of life. So that's why for renunciation, the qualification is jnana, vairagya. So renunciation is vairagya. But to actually take to vairagya, you need jnana. What is that jnana? Jnana means to understand that I'm not this body, I'm a spirit soul. Again, the next question is, how can you get this jnana, this realization, that you will get in the association of a sadhu? When you hear from a sadhu, then you'll get that jnana. But if somebody does not have this, out of frustration, right? This world is miserable, or my family does not care for me, or I face some loss in my business, so let me just leave this world and let me take sannyas. That is not giving up this world with knowledge. Out of frustration, if somebody simply leaves, then Srila Prabhupada is saying one cannot stick to the renounced order of life. Or then you leave home just because you left home and you wore saffron clothes. It's not that you're going to maintain that type of renunciation. So real renunciation is, of course, ultimately real renunciation is to give up that desire to enjoy the results. Enjoy the results of my activity. That is actual renunciation. But even to take to the sannyas order of life, one must have jnana. That is said in Bhagavad Gita also. For sannyasis, jnana, detachment is essential. So therefore they have to cultivate knowledge. Even if you see Mayavad sannyasis, impersonalist sannyasis, their main means is cultivating knowledge, and through that they try to be detached. That is essential. So unless one has knowledge, he will not be able to stick to the renounced order of life. And then text 36, first he slowly pacified his mind by intelligence. Yeah. So you remember that analogy of the chariot. Yes. The horses are the senses. The reins controlling the horses is the mind, and the chariot driver is intelligence. So how do we control our senses, and how do we control our mind? With the higher intelligence. So when we have spiritual intelligence, with spiritual intelligence, even if the senses are getting deviated here and there, with higher intelligence, with spiritual intelligence, you can control your mind, and then the mind controls the senses. So Sanjay was not able to speak, he was not able to think anything, but then gradually he pacified the mind with his intelligence, and then he wiped away his tears, and he was thinking of the lotus feet of his master. When lotus feet, it doesn't say. He was thinking of the feet of his master, Dhritarashtra, and then he began to speak to Yudhishthir. So that is texts 35 and 36. tomorrow's verse is very nice, very interesting. And Acharya Prabhu will give that class. So I will end here. Is there any discussions, questions, comments? Mataji, Indiavali Mataji.
Yes, Mataji, it's very good advice and very good class. I just have a question. How Sanjay has the Divyadrishi, he can tell from Vasudeva, he got that vision. So about Kurukshetra war and everything, he assisted to Dhritarashtra.
Mm-hmm.
So how come he didn't know where they went?
That Divya Drishti was there only for the battle, as long as the battle was going on. Yeah. And after that it ended. It's not like he had. It was given by the mercy of Vyasdev, and that was specifically for Dhritarashtra Maharaj, because Dhritarashtra Maharaj could not go to the battle, he could not participate. So this was, Vyasdev is the father of Dhritarashtra Maharaj. So Vyasdev came to see Dhritarashtra Maharaj. And then he said, even though you are blind, I can give you the vision. You can see the battle yourself. But Dhritarashtra said, no, what will I do? I won't be able to. Better give it to Sanjaya. I trust him. And then I can hear from him, like that. So that vision was just for until the battle was going on.
Yeah, he just felt it as if he was in the battlefield. And Sanjaya gave all the description.
Yeah.
Like that. So I was just wondering, how come he didn't know that?
Yes, yeah.
But it's a very good advice.
Yeah. Gokulananda Priya Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, you were mentioning in order to be a sannyasi is very important to cultivate knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just thinking, there's so many sannyasi, like the illiterate. What will you say about it?
Yes, Mataji. So knowledge is not necessarily acquired by reading or by literacy. It's not that. So the way to acquire knowledge is by serving the spiritual master. Whether it is in, so there are, in the spiritual path has, or how do you say, the spiritual school, right? Or in order to transcend this material world, there are two paths. One path is called the path of Jnana, the other path is called Bhakti, or you can say the impersonalist and the personalist. Both the impersonalist and personalist schools require that one approach a spiritual master. You need a spiritual master in both cases. So how do you get knowledge? Again, in one of the classes, a few classes before, we had discussed this, that the spiritual master, first of all, tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya, the disciple approaches the spiritual master, and the knowledge is received through hearing. Okay, so even if you are not educated, you become educated by hearing. You may not know reading, writing, but even otherwise, even if you didn't do that, if you simply carry out the orders, the instructions given by the spiritual master, you become submissive to the spiritual master and you carry out the instructions of the spiritual master. In that combination, knowledge is produced or realization is produced. So it is not necessary that for jnana you have to be literate. What is required is obedience and submissiveness to the spiritual master. When you render submissive service to the spiritual master, when the spiritual master is pleased, then the Supreme Lord awards that realization. It is also said in Srimad Bhagavatam that all the conclusions of the scriptures are revealed to one who serves the spiritual master exactly he serves Krishna, who treats the spiritual master exactly as he's serving Krishna. To such a person, all the imports of the scriptures are revealed like that. Mataji, is that okay? Golokanand Mataji.
I was thinking the same thing, only by hearing, by accepting spirituality, hearing from and follows the instruction, one can renounce. Yeah. I just want to hear from you also, and what's your version?
Thank you.
Sometimes people think that knowledge is only through book knowledge.
Actually, that's an important point, because even when Srila Prabhupada told us to read Srimad Bhagavatam every day, it is not exactly like we read Bhagavatam to get knowledge. It's not like that. That is also there, but that's not the real purpose. The purpose is to serve Srimad Bhagavatam. Like every day we attend Mangalarti, every day we attend Guru Puja, go and bow down in front of Krishna. Like that, every day we serve Krishna in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. That is important. So sometimes you will see some senior devotees. It doesn't matter who the speaker is. It can be a neophyte devotee also, a brand new devotee. Still very, they come and they sit in Srimad Bhagavatam class with great respect, day after day, year after year, decade after decade, as a service to Srimad Bhagavatam. And as a gesture of carrying out the order of the spiritual master. And that act of devotional service gives, because the Lord is in the heart, there is awakening in the heart. So, yeah, that's just an additional.
And also Srila Prabhupada said many times that even you don't understand it, you're still here.
Correct.
Yeah. You can just by the vibration, you get purified.
Like me.
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada gives his own example also. Like, I didn't understand everything that my spiritual master was saying, because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's, especially in English, when he would give lectures, it would be very, his vocabulary and everything would be like very high. But even philosophically, it was very high. So I didn't understand everything that he spoke, but I liked to hear. So I would just sit and I would hear him. And he noted that. And he said, I will give him initiation because he likes to hear. He likes to hear. So that is the qualification.
But I always do that, Mataji. I don't understand most of them. I don't know whether I'm following or not, but I do hear every day.
Yeah. And that you're doing as a service to Srimad Bhagavatam, and that is what is actually required. So
another point is, a person can have a lot of degrees and everything, but unless otherwise he didn't have any common sense or anything what is going on. Do you think that is good?
Can you say that again, Mataji?
Person can have degrees and everything. Can have high degree education. But whether if he doesn't have common sense, so how to behave with people, how to be with the society, how to pray God and whatever. So is it, how does it work? Is it okay?
No, it is not okay. It is not okay. But we will always test everything. We have a scale, right? So our scale is his God consciousness. Because Srila Prabhupada said, how do you know if a person is a devotee? Prabhupada said he's a perfect gentleman. He's a perfect gentleman. That means he will be an all-rounder. He will also behave nicely and everything will be there if he becomes a devotee. Or if somebody is not a devotee and if he does, he behaves nicely and everything else, what is the value of all that if he's not God conscious? So that point is also there. So simply having knowledge and not behaving properly, that means the person is still immature, a neophyte, and needs to progress further. But like we would not discourage, right? At least the person is trying to get some spiritual knowledge and they will grow. That's how I would see.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay. Any other, are there any announcements? Or...
Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances to Srila Prabhupada. This,
Yes,
I thank you for the background in the relationship with Sanjaya, and that gave a different perspective in their relationship. That, to me, that was very helpful. And one of the things that I took away from that is how oftentimes we in our relationships, we look for perfection, and, the person may not be perfect, and that disappoints us.
Yeah.
And just how loyal Sanjaya was, he knew that, the fault was there in Dhritarashtra, but he stayed with them regardless.
Yes.
And how oftentimes we may write somebody off for their imperfections, or maybe they're disobedient. And we just think, okay, this person's nonsense, or this person is, they're never going to learn. I don't have time for this person. And it gave a different perspective here, understanding that relationship. That was very helpful. Made me reflect. I think just on the perspective of relationships and what our expectations should be, looking at how these devotees are interacting.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. What I'm reflecting after listening to your comment is that the thing may be the same, how different people are able to take, depending on that person's advancement, you can take the finer points out of it. So I appreciate your bringing that up. And it's true. We also see in the case of the Yamadutas, when the Yamadutas heard from the Vishnudutas, in Ajamil's case, when they heard that, they were thinking that Yamaraj was the Supreme Master. Their master was the Supreme Master. And they had the right to take everyone and, all the sinful people. And when the Vishnudutas said that, when they saw Vishnudutas, someone who had more power, they could even, go against the law, the rule of the order of their master. This was very shocking to them. So they went back to Yamaraj and to ask Yamaraj, what's going on? And the Yamaraj explained to them, actually, I am also a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So after the Yamadutas heard this, it is not that, oh, there is someone higher. Until now, we were thinking he's the highest, so we were serving him. So there's someone better than this, then let's give this person up and go there. They didn't do that. They continued with their service to their master, right? Servant of the servant of the servant, like that. So they continued serving their master with this understanding that he is a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is another perspective of that same principle. We have our, Guru Shishya Parampara, disciplic succession. So we are faithful to our master, and we understand Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but we have this hierarchy, and we remain faithful to our master. And then, because I think initially some disciples of Srila Prabhupada, they tried to worship Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur directly, right? Because they saw Srila Prabhupada worshipping Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, so let us worship him directly. So Srila Prabhupada said, no, you should worship your spiritual master. And then the mercy flows through the parampara system. So yeah, this principle of being faithful to one's master, and we have many spiritual masters, don't we? We learn, so that's gratitude that is at the heart of Krishna consciousness, remaining grateful. And of course, the point that Dronacharya Prabhu brought, we may see some faults. Look at Dhritarashtra. I mean, he did everything wrong, isn't it? He was just at every step. So many people were giving him the right advice, counsel. He didn't accept it. But in spite of all that, Sanjaya remained faithful to his master. So yes, thank you, Dronacharya Prabhu, for bringing that point out. Yes, so shall we end here?
Yeah, I want to add up on that. I know in our movement, sometimes some people, they commit some very, grave offensive, heinous offenses, and some mistake or something, and people start going and blaming the leader who were in charge of that person, and they start hating him for no reason, because in his management, somebody is is committing some terrible mistake.
Yeah.
So I have seen that in our movement itself, and just start like criticizing him and writing so many articles on the
That's not
internet, and just just trying to make everybody responsible. That's the people who are responsible. They are responsible for the mistake.
Correct. And actually, when such things happen, it should only come to us like like a warning that it is so risky in this material world. Even after coming to that stage, still, you're always vulnerable. You better be careful, right? You become more serious in your Krishna consciousness instead of blaming somebody else. And of course, when someone needs help, then that should be offered. But simply criticizing and blaming doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help anyone. Yes, thank you, Mataji.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Again, I think these verses have been emphasizing how much we need to look within ourselves. Stop pointing the finger at others. My Guru Maharaj had instructed me, if you are in a position to help, see, sometimes what happens is we find faults in everybody else, but we are not in a position to direct them in any way. I mean, whether it is a position like a material position or even our intelligence. When you are in a position to help, then you try to correct, fix, and go forward. Otherwise, mind your business is what he said. So criticizing just does not get us anywhere.
No.
But the point I was, and again, it is unbelievable. We don't see that Dhritarashtra in ourselves. That is the problem. In Dhritarashtra, we are able to very clearly see what his faults are. Where have I been like Dhritarashtra? And towards that, I see that last sentence in the purport. Prabhupada writes, unless one is convinced of a better life after renunciation of the present life, one cannot stick. So, we keep on saying, we are not this body, we are not this body. I say it, I'm saying it in English, we are not this body. But I'm not living my life like that. And again, I'm not trying to become a renunciate, but even that Yukta Vairagya is not there, and that is what we need to try and develop. And to me, that just stuck out today. Of course, every class I'm thinking how far behind I am, how much work I have to do. But that sentence was also very clear in making me understand how much I need to work on realizing that we are not this body. We still live our lives acting like we are this body.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mataji.
Mataji, Hare Krishna. Any announcements for today? No. Okay, so no announcements, William.
No announcements. Just reminding everybody that we're in the holy month of Kartik, and at the temple, we invite you all to join us 7 o'clock every evening for the Damodara prayers. And we're also reading afterwards from the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto 9th chapter on the Damodar Leela. And we'll continue that throughout the month. On Sunday, it's at 6:15 as part of the Sunday Feast program. So those that you come, we have a nice new addition to our temple. You'll see when you come to the temple if you haven't seen already. So, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय,
Jai.
श्री
Jai.
प्रभुपाद की जय,
Jai.
Jai.
समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय।
Jai.
कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यश्च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो
Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Hare
नंद
Krishna.
वृंद की जय। थैंक यू।
Thank you very much, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.